Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the show. Hope you guys are having a good week. Let's go ahead and get started with episode 17 of our YouTube application series tutorial. In today's lesson, I want to show you guys how to improve our video player by introducing some controls that allow us to pause, play, and also show a spinning loader to confirm that the player is ready to render itself. So before I go into the code and start typing out the implementation, I want to kind of demo to you what that actually looks like. So our screen here, we have the current player. Clicking on a video cell renders this black area. You notice that there is no indicator as to whether or not the video is loading. So that will be one of the first things that we need to implement. And when we're done, we're going to have something that looks kind of like this. So I'm gonna click on one of these cells. You see this spinning loader there, and you see this pause and this play button right here. And that allows me to actually manipulate whether or not the player is playing, obviously. So we're gonna look at how to build out those couple of components. And let's go ahead and start with the very basic of adding the actual loading spinner that you see upon clicking in one of those videos. So that sounds pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and run our application to see that the code is in a good place to start. So clicking there, we get nothing, and then the video starts playing back. So pretty good. I'm just going to kill the player right there. And inside of Video Launcher, Video Player View, this is kind of where we want to start with the implementation. So if I tab back into, let's see, perhaps this guy, this whole area right here on top with all these controls, this is actually an overlay view that contains all of these labels, buttons, and this scrubber down here. So to make it easier for you guys, I'm going to create this container view called controls container view up here. And this is going to be a UI view class, constructing it programmatically with this closure right here. Let's just say let view equals UI view, and view.background color equals perhaps UI color of black color. I think that should be okay. Let's just return this view right here, and executing this closure gives us this entire view. So what is this actual view? Well, we're going to actually add it into the entire video player view, which is this top section right here. So we can do that if we want to actually do it a little easier by saying, let's see, controls container view.frame equals the initial frame right here. And then if we add subview of controls container view, we should be good to go in terms of this black view. So to make it more obvious, I'm going to turn it into this red background color, just so you guys can see the actual red right there. So that's what we get. And then the thing is that the player is actually on top of this controls container view. So to actually prevent that from happening, we need to add the player before we add the controls container view. So how am I going to do this? Well, to make this a little cleaner, I want to cut all of this code here. I'm going to call all that code inside of setup player, setup player view like that. And then this function below will be setup player view, and I'm going to paste all that code in there. Perhaps we can mark this as a private function as well. So now that we have that, I'm going to set all of this up right before adding the controls container view inside of our application. So what you're going to get is you'll get this red container view, and then the player is actually playing behind it. So to show you how that kind of looks like, let's see. I want to actually change this color for the container view to white of 0 and alpha of 0.5. So this is going to allow you to see through the controls container view. So I'm only doing this to show you guys what this kind of looks like. So the actual video is behind the controls view right now. And what this means is I can start adding the controls on this control container view layer right here. So how do we actually want to do this? Well, I want to add the spinner, the actual loader, into this container view right there. So let's do that by adding this activity indicator, it's the indicator view, UI activity indicator view equals disclosure. And this is the actual spinner component. It's a pretty fancy name for it. So let's construct it with AIV equals that with this style of white large. And let's just return AIV right there. And that should be okay. So because we're going to be adding this using constraints, we need to set this property mask into constraints to false. And below inside of init, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to add it inside of the controls container view by adding subview of activity indicator view. And here's how we actually center it in the middle. We'll call it activity indicator view, center X anchor, constrained to some kind of anchor. I think we can just say center X anchor like this. So essentially that's going to give you self center X anchor. So we don't need the self there. And let's just center the Y as well, constrained to center Y anchor. And we need to set active equals true. Otherwise, these constraints don't take into effect. So I think that's okay. I'm gonna run the application now. You should be able to see this little spinning loader guy on top of the controls, but we don't see it. And I think it's because AIV starts animating, needs to actually start spinning. Otherwise, it is going to be absolutely hidden. So here we go. Here is our basic setup for the video player. And the idea is we want to do a couple of things. We want to hide this spinner guy whenever the video is ready. And the question is, what does it mean to be ready? And how do we know if it's actually rendering frames inside of the player? Well, that part is not as straightforward as you would expect. So the way to actually tell when the player is ready is to attach a observer onto this player object right here. So to do that, all you have to do is call player, add observer right here. And you want to use this key path observer guy here. Observer is self. Key path is this thing called, it's going to be a string, and I'll tell you what that string is in just a bit. So NS key value observing options will be dot new like that. Context will be null. So what is this key path? Well, if you actually search on Stack Overflow and you try to search for when an AV player is ready, you will find that some posts will tell you to check for status, but this actually doesn't work. And the better way to check when a player is ready is to actually look at this thing called current item dot loaded time ranges, I believe. So let me just check. And yes, that looks correct. So whenever you add this observer onto an object like that, you need to implement this method called observe value for key path, like so. And what you want to do is you want to now check this key path. So if I copy this string here and check if key path is equal to that string, we know that this value is kind of changing for us. So before I type up too much inside of this function, let's just see what happens when we encounter line 60 whenever this player is kind of ready. So let's hit that. Player is loading, and when it's done loading, it actually hits this breakpoint right here. And if I hit the play, it hits the breakpoint a couple of more times, and you can ignore that for now. But the takeaway is that upon actually hitting line 60, the video is somewhat ready. And what that means is that frames are actually being rendered inside of the player. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely remove both these components here, or not the entire component, but let me first start by removing the activity indicator view by doing this. Let's see, inside of this print, I'm going to say activity indicator view, stop animating, and let's just remove the change property there. So whenever you call stop animating on the spinner, it automatically hides itself. So that's just a property that you kind of have to get used to. So it kind of removes itself like that. So that's pretty good. And I don't know if you noticed, but the actual spinner is actually removed a little later than when the video is played. So you'll see a glimpse of the spinner. And to fix that, what we need to do is I'm going to, instead of using this alpha of 0.5, I'm going to just make it completely opaque with alpha of 1. And if we go back to the loaded area of the player, we can say controls container view dot background color equals this clear color like that. So if we run this, you're going to see that the player plays the video, and then the loader, the spinner will disappear, and then the actual controls container view, the black, is now removed from the entire top portion of the player. All right, so good stuff. I hope you guys are still with me so far. And the idea now is to actually implement this play button and then this pause button that actually plays the video. So doing that is pretty simple. If we construct this, let's see, pause button right here equals a standard button, and inside here, let's construct it programmatically with UI button. We use type of system. This gives us a nice gray shade as you tap on the button. And inside here, let's just return the button, executing the closure like so. And in order to set an image on a button like this, all you have to do is call button set image, and then the state needs to be normal, I think, like that. And what is this image? Well, let's just create it up here. Let image equals UI image, yep, this right here, this name constructor of something. So I have this image that I am going to call pause. So let's see, where am I here? Okay, so I'm inside my images directory. And if I open up my assets, I'm going to drag this pause and play button into my assets. There we go. So these buttons look like that. They're kind of huge, but that is what they are. So inside of our player, we have this pause image there. We set that button image to that image there, and let's just say button.translates to false. This will allow us to add the button into the container view. So let me get rid of the file explorer. No, not that guy. That guy. All right, cool. All right. So to add it into the actual center there, all we have to do is call controls container view add subview pause button like that, and let's just center it. So pause button. To make this a little easier, I'm going to copy those constraints, take the pause button, and then this will center it X and center it Y on the center there. And I think I might need some width anchors. So I'm going to constrain the width to a constant of perhaps 50. I don't know, that sounds kind of good. And the height will be 50 as well. I think I need to set active equals true on both these guys. And let's see what this renders out whenever we tap on the actual player. So get that, we get this blue thing right there. So the player plays, and then we get this blue guy right here. So to set this blue to white, we'll just say button dot tint color equals this white color here. And what else do we need to do? So that's going to set the button to white, and you see it gives us this nice transparent color when we touch on it. The thing to handle is what happens when we actually press the pause. Well, to catch the touch event, we say button dot add target. Target of self selector will be, let's see, handle pause is this function we create down here. Let's see, function handle pause, pretty standard stuff. Hope you guys are used to this by now. The touch event will be touch up inside like that. And to fix this, let's see, this self issue right here, let's just change let to lazy var, and I think we have access to self right there. So good stuff. And we're going to print out this statement pausing player every time we tap on the pause button. So nothing too fancy just yet. Okay, here we go. We're going to hit that, and then when the player is ready, we'll hit this pause button, and you'll see pausing player down here. So how do we actually pause the player inside of our view? Well, we eventually will need to call some kind of function on the player called pause like that. So this pause is a method on player, just like how we call play, we can call player.pause to stop it right there. But because we don't have, let's see, we don't have a reference to player on line 35. So let's create the reference right. Let's see, player is there. So we'll create the local reference of var player av player, optional like that. And we can remove the let, and this is going to use the local reference of player. To fix this, we'll hit a question mark, and are we good? Are we good? I think we're good. So this also needs a question mark up here. So let's see what this gives us whenever we hit the pause button. Okay, hopefully everything's going to work. And let's see. So we hit the pause, we get the player to pause, but we actually need to make it play as well. So before we change this into a play button, I want to do a couple of things. So what I notice is that the pause needs to show up after the video is rendered. So what I mean is we're going to default the pause button up here. So button.hidden will be true. So it defaults to a hidden state. And upon this ready section, so I'm going to, let's just use a comment here. This is when the player is ready. Let's see, ready and rendering frames. So that's what this section is right here. And inside of the if case, we'll say pause button.hidden equals false. So whenever the player is ready, we're going to show the pause button in view. Let's see what this looks like. So you get the loader, and then you get the pause button. Quite good. And pausing it actually pauses the player. So pretty handy for us to kind of just pause it as we're developing our code. And the next thing to implement is handling the playing of the video after you've paused the player. To do that, we need to introduce a couple of things here. Well, let's just do this first. So whenever we're pausing the player, we can actually say pause button dot set image. And what is this image? Well, let's just use image of named, let's see, play, and let's just use normal right there. So inside of our assets, we have this play button called play. And every time we hit the pause, it'll just change to that image. So let's see what this looks like. And here we go. Video is loading, and pause gives us that. So every time we hit the play, we actually need to play the video again. So one thing I want to change first to make our code a little bit more precise is to rename this pause button to, pause play button. That sounds a little bit better because the button itself handles pausing and playing. So everywhere inside of the code, I'm just going to rename it to the correct variable name, and inside of here as well. So now what do we need to do in order to play the video again upon hitting the play button? Well, I'm going to introduce a variable called isPlaying, and this will be defaulted to false. So whenever the class is being initialized, it is not playing. So that's what this logic means here. And every time we hit the pause, we're going to say isPlaying equals the opposite of isPlaying. So that's going to give me the opposite value. And right above here, I'm going to say if isPlaying. So if it's playing, I can call player.pause like this. So let's get rid of this code right here. Else we'll say player.play. And we actually need to cut this and put that in here. So when the player is playing, we need to pause it, and then it'll show the play button. And inside of the else case, we'll need to set it back to the pause like so. So I'm going to run this, and it's basically just toggling the image back and forth between the play and the pause, and toggling this flag to whatever it used to be. So let's hit that, and it's going to hit the pause. So play, pause, so pause, play, pause, play. So what you notice is that in the beginning, the actual behavior is incorrect. And specifically, I'm talking about the pause right there. So if I try to pause it, it doesn't actually pause until I hit it twice. And the reason for that is because the flag is defaulted to false in the beginning. So whenever it's ready and playing, we'll just say isPlaying equals true. And this way our logic is clean and closely models what the actual player is doing. So we're gonna hit the play, and it's playing. So hit pause, play. So let's hit play, pause, play, pause. So that looks pretty good. Okay, that's all I wanted to show you guys for today. Now in the next video, I want to teach you guys how to actually get the duration of the entire clip of the video, and also how to scrub to different portions of the video as you're rendering the playback. So all that stuff is pretty interesting, and hope you guys stay tuned for that. Now, if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also you can download the project below in the description. Should be a link to my new website where you can download the source code and see what it looks like. And that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoy. Bye.